Before we start today's block, I wanted to start showing you how I'm going to piece the Quilt of Valor. As if you've been watching in the past week, I think this is number 5 that we're doing today, and I'm making 20 blocks for a Quilt of Valor quilt. And how I'm going to set it is each block is going to have a little frame around it, and it will either be red or blue. And then in the center, I'm going to have sashing similar to this. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to put in the sashing. This, or it may be this. And I think it will be a 2-inch sashing. I'll find out and give you instructions in the next video, or the next several videos give you instructions. But this is the twist block we did a few days ago, and this is the Peace and Plenty block that we did yesterday. And what I'm trying to do is I alternate the red and the blue frames. So this one had a lot of blue on the outside, and I put a red frame on it. And this one was either blue or red, so I just chose blue because it will be next. But the red and blues will alternate. And we'll go red, blue, and then just alternate that way with sashing and cornerstones between them. Now I don't know what I'm going to do with the cornerstones yet. I'll probably mix those up too, but I haven't decided yet. This is what it's going to look like. The blocks will look like. This is a 1/2 inch finished strip, and you'll cut 2 strips at 12.5 and 2 strips at 13.5. And you put the 12.5 inch strips on first on either side, press those, and then put the 13.5 inch strips on the top and bottom and press those. And here's what it looks like pressed. When I sew this on, I'll have the frame, the little frame strip at the bottom next to the feed dogs, and I have the block on top, so I can watch as I'm sewing and make sure I'm not cutting off any points. So if you wanted to look at your collection of blues and reds, or this one I didn't intend to have it the same fabric, but I just cut these while I was cutting this, and it ended up this way, and I left it. But as you're cutting your blocks, you might want to cut a set. So a set would be 2 at 12.5 and 2 at 13.5. Or you can totally mix them up. You can have red and blue mixed together. You can have 4 different reds, 2 different reds, whatever you like. So that's what the Quilt of Valor will look like, and I'll have drawings for you in the next week or so, and instructions too. The block today is called Blockade. It's a 12-inch finished, as they all are. This will have quarter square triangles in the corners, and these are going to be exactly how we did for the Peace and Plenty block yesterday, and it will have a different inside. These are actually half square triangles. There's 4 of them. And this is another quarter square triangle around the sides. Here's what they look like with 4 blocks together. Has a little pinwheel in the middle. And here are the patches. Patch A is a 6-inch finished quarter square triangle. We cut the squares at 7 1/4 inches and cut them in half twice on the diagonal. We'll have 4 patches when we do that. That is for if you are rotary cutting. You'll need 4 patches of the red, white, and blue each. So you'll cut 1 square of the red, cut it in half twice, and then the same thing with the white and the blue. Here are the AccuQuilt dies you can use if you are using AccuQuilt. Patch B is a 3-inch finished half square triangle. We cut 3 7/8 inch squares, cut them in half once on the diagonal. You do this if you want to sew patches together. There's another way you can sew your half square triangles, and that is 2 at a time. If you want to make half square triangles 2 at a time, you cut the squares this size, but you do not subcut them. So for rotary cutting, you can cut your triangles and piece triangles together, or you can cut squares and make make the half square triangles 2 at a time. There'll be a little short demo after this that shows you how to do that. If you are cutting out triangle pieces or patches, you'll need 2 patches of the red and the white and 4 patches of the blue. If you're doing the 2 at a time, you'll need 1 square each of the red and the white and 2 squares of the blue. Here are the AccuQuilt dies you'll use to cut these patches. The first thing we're going to do is piece the corner units, which are the A patches. Next we'll piece the half square triangles. There are 2 different colorings of those. Then we're going to sew the half square triangles together. Then add the corner pieces to this center unit and then put the block together. Here are the patches. These are patch A, which is the quarter square triangles. So the corner units will look like this, the red and the white. The blue patches are used when we put the corners together. Here are my squares. This is patch B. I'm going to do the two at a time half square triangles. So we'll match one of these, the red with the blue and the white with the blue. Then we'll make our 4 half square triangles out of this. The first thing we'll do is stitch these quarter square triangles for the corners, the white and the red. You flip this over and match the corner here and stitch on this side 1/4 inch. You'll do that with all 4 of these and you'll have 4 corner units. Next we'll do the half square triangles 2 at a time, and if you're not familiar with that technique, stay tuned for a little short tutorial on how to do this. On the back side of the light fabric, we're going to draw a diagonal line, put the fabrics together, right sides together, and we're going to stitch on either side of the diagonal line. Here is the diagonal line drawn, and then the stitching on both sides. Now we cut this in half along the diagonal line. Then we have our 2 half square triangles. Press the seams open and cut off the nubs. The corner units are done and the 2 sets of half square triangles are done. Now we're going to take these half square triangles and piece them together like this. Piece these 2 together, then these 2, and then piece the rows together. Now we're going to use the remaining A patches to put corners on this center unit, like this. And like any time I do these corners, I do the opposite sides first, press them, and then do the remaining 2 sides, then press those. Whenever we sew triangles to the opposite sides, we'll want to trim off these nubs here. And I always trim these off even with the straight part here. Do the same on this side. And now add the remaining triangles here. And these centers will have nubs you need to cut off as well. We're just going to repeat what we just did with these corner units. The same thing, we're going to sew opposite sides first, press them, and then sew the last sides. Thanks for watching.